The Jagiellonian dynasty was a royal dynasty, founded by Jogaila, the Grand Duke of Lithuania, who in 1386 was baptized as Władysław, married Queen Jadwiga of Poland, and was crowned King of Poland as Władysław II Jagiełło. The dynasty reigned in several Central European countries between the 14th and 16th centuries. Members of the dynasty were Kings of Poland, Grand Dukes of Lithuania, Kings of Hungary, and Kings of Bohemia. The personal union between the Kingdom of Poland and the Grand Duchy of Lithuania is the reason for the common appellation Poland-Lithuania in discussions about the area from the late Middle Ages onward. One Jagiellonian briefly ruled both Poland and Hungary, and two others ruled both Bohemia and Hungary, and then continued in the distaff line as a branch of the House of Habsburg. The Polish Golden Age, the period of the reigns of Sigismund I and Sigismund II, the last two Jagiellonian kings, or more generally the 16th century, is most often identified with the rise of the culture of Polish Renaissance. The cultural flowering had its material base in the prosperity of the elites, both the landed nobility and urban patriciate at such centers as Krakow and Danzig. The name comes from Jogaila, the first Grand Duke of Lithuania to become King of Poland. In Polish, the dynasty is known as Jagiellonowie in the patronymic form, Jagiellończyk. In Lithuanian it is called Jogaila, in Belarusian, in Hungarian Jagiello, and in Czech Jagiellonci, as well as Jagiello or Jagiellon in Latin. Pre-dynasty background. The rule of Piasts, the earlier Polish ruling house, had ended with the death of King Casimir III the Great. Gediminids, the immediate predecessors of the first Jagiellonian, were rulers of medieval Lithuania with the title of Grand Duke. The realm, the Grand Duchy of Lithuania, was chiefly inhabited by Lithuanians and Ruthenians. Jogaila, the eponymous first ruler of the Jagiellonian dynasty, started as the Grand Duke of Lithuania. As a result of the union of Crevor, he then converted to Christianity and married the 11-year-old Hedwig of Poland. Thereby he became King of Poland and founded the dynasty. Angevin rulers were the second and Jagiellonian third dynasty of Polish kings. Kingdom of Poland, Jogaila and Władysław III. Polish-Lithuanian Union. In 1385 the Union of Crevor was signed between Queen Jadwiga of Poland and Jogaila, the Grand Duke of Lithuania, the last pagan state in Europe. The act arranged for Jogaila's baptism and for the couple's marriage and constituted the beginning of the Polish-Lithuanian Union. The union strengthened both nations in the shared opposition to the Teutonic Knights and the growing threat of the Grand Duchy of Moscow. Uniquely in Europe, the union connected two states geographically located on the opposite sides of the great civilizational divide between the Western Latin and the Eastern Byzantine worlds. The intention of the union was to create a common state under Władysław II Jagiełło, but the Polish ruling oligarchy's idea of incorporation of Lithuania into Poland turned out to be unrealistic. There would be territorial disputes and warfare between Poland and Lithuania. Lithuanian factions, the Lithuanians at times had even found it expedient to conspire with the Teutonic Knights against the Poles. Geographic consequences of the dynastic union and the preferences of the Jagiellonian kings accelerated the process of reorientation of Polish territorial priorities to the east. The political influence of the Jagiellonian kings was diminishing during this period, which was accompanied by the ever-increasing role in central government and national affairs of land landed nobility. The royal dynasty, however, had a stabilizing effect on Poland's politics. The Jagiellonian era is often regarded as a period of maximum political power, great prosperity, and in its later stage, the golden age of Polish culture. Struggle with the Teutonic Knights. The Great War of 1409 to 1411, precipitated by the Lithuanian uprising in the order-controlled Samojussia, included the Battle of Grunwald, where the Polish and Lithuanian armies completely defeated the Teutonic Knights. The offensive that followed lost its impact with the ineffective siege of Malbork. The failure to take the fortress and eliminate the Teutonic state had for Poland dire historic consequences in the 18th, 19th and 20th centuries. The Peace of Thorn had given Poland and Lithuania rather modest territorial adjustments, including Samojussia. Afterwards there were negotiations and peace deals that didn't hold, more military campaigns and arbitrations. One attempted, unresolved arbitration took place at the Council of Constance. Polish-Hungarian Union. During the Hussite Wars, Jagiello, Vytautas and Sigismund Korybut were involved in political and military maneuvering concerning the Czech crown, offered by the Hussites first to Jagiello in 1420. Zbigniew Olesnicki became known as the leading opponent of a union with the Hussite Czech state. The Jagiellonian dynasty was not entitled to automatic hereditary succession, as each new king had to be approved by nobility consensus. Władysław Jagiełło had two sons late in life from his last wife, Sophia of Holstein. In 1430 the nobility agreed to the succession of the future Władysław III, only after the king gave in and guaranteed the satisfaction of the new demands. In 1434 the old monarch died and his minor son Władysław was crowned. The royal council led by Bishop Olesnicki undertook the regency duties. In 1438 the Czech anti-Habsburg opposition, mainly Hussite factions, offered the Czech crown to Jagiello's younger son Casimir IV. The idea, accepted in Poland over Olesnicki's objections, resulted in two unsuccessful Polish military expeditions to Bohemia. After Vytautas' death in 1430, Lithuania became embroiled in internal wars and conflicts with Poland. Casimir IV, sent as a boy by Władysław III on a mission there in 1440, was surprisingly proclaimed by the Lithuanians as a Grand Duke of Lithuania, and he stayed in Lithuania. Olesnicki gained the upper hand again and pursued his long-term objective of Poland's union with Hungary. At the time the Ottoman Empire embarked on a new round of European conquests and threatened Hungary, which needed the powerful Polish-Lithuanian ally. In 1440 Władysław III assumed the Hungarian throne. Influenced by Julian Caesariini, the young king led the Hungarian army against the Ottomans in 1443 and again in 1444. Like Caesariini, Władysław III was killed at the Battle of Varna. Beginning toward the end of Jagiello's life, Poland was practically governed by a magnate oligarchy led by Olesnicki. The rule of the dignitaries was actively opposed by various Szlachta groups. Their leader Spitek of Melston was killed during an armed confrontation in 1439, which allowed Olesnicki to purge Poland of the remaining Hussite sympathizers and pursue his other objectives without significant opposition. Casimir IV Jagiellon. In 1445 Casimir, the Grand Duke of Lithuania, was asked to assume the Polish throne vacated by the death of his brother Władysław. Casimir was a tough negotiator and did not accept the Polish nobility's conditions for his election. Casimir Jagiellon was the third and youngest son of King Władysław II Jagiełło and his fourth wife, Sophia of Holstein. His father was already 65 at the time of Casimir's birth, and his brother Władysław III, 3 years his senior, was expected to become king before his majority. Strangely, little was done for his education. He was never taught Latin, nor was he trained for the responsibilities of office. Despite the fact he was the only brother of the rightful sovereign, he often relied on his instinct and feelings and had little political knowledge, but shared a great interest in the diplomacy and economic affairs of the country. Throughout Casimir's youth, Bishop Zbigniew Olesnicki was his mentor and tutor. However, the cleric felt a strong reluctance towards him, believing that he would be an unsuccessful monarch following Władysław's death. The sudden death of Sigismund Kęstutytus left the office of the Grand Duchy of Lithuania empty. The voivode of Turkey, Jonas Gostautas, and other magnates of Lithuania supported Casimir as a candidate to the throne. However, many Polish noblemen hoped that the 13-year-old boy would become a vice-regent for the Polish king in Lithuania. Casimir was invited by the Lithuanian magnates to Lithuania, and when he arrived in Vilnius in 1440, he was proclaimed as the Grand Duke of Lithuania on the 29th of June 1440 by the Council of Lords. Casimir succeeded his brother Władysław III as King of Poland after a 3-year interregnum on the 25th of June 1447. In 1454, he married Elizabeth of Austria, daughter of the late King of the Romans Albert II of Habsburg by his late wife Elizabeth of Bohemia. Her distant relative Frederick of Habsburg became Holy Roman Emperor and reigned as Frederick III until after Casimir's own death. The marriage strengthened the ties between the House of Jagiellonian and the sovereigns of Hungary, Bohemia, and put Casimir at odds with the Holy Roman Emperor through internal Habsburg rivalry. Becoming a king of Poland, Casimir also freed himself from the control the Lithuanian oligarchy had imposed on him. In the Vilnius Privilege of 1447, he declared the Lithuanian nobility having equal rights with Polish szlachta. In time, Casimir's Jagiellonchik was able to remove from power Cardinal Olesnicki and his group, basing his own power on the younger middle nobility camp instead. A conflict with the Pope and the local church hierarchy over the right to fill vacant bishop positions Casimir also resolved in his favor. 13 Years' War. The same year, Casimir was approached by the Prussian Confederation for aid against the Teutonic Order, which he promised, by making the separatist Prussian regions a protectorate of the Polish kingdom. However, when the insurgent cities rebelled against the order, it resisted and the 13 Years' War ensued. Casimir and the Prussian Confederation defeated the Teutonic Order, taking over its capital at Marienburg. In the Second Peace of Thorn, the order recognized Polish sovereignty over the seceded Western Prussian regions, Royal Prussia, and the Polish crown's overlordship over the remaining Teutonic monastic state, transformed in 1525 into a duchy, Ducal Prussia. Poland regained Pomerania and with it the all-important access to the Baltic Sea, as well as Warmia. In addition to land warfare, naval battles had taken place, where ships provided by the city of Danzig successfully fought Danish and Teutonic fleets. Other 15th-century Polish territorial gains, or rather reivindications, included the Duchy of Oswiecim and Duchy of Zeta on Silesia's border with Lesser Poland, and there was notable progress regarding the incorporation of the Pist Masovian duchies into the crown. Turkish and Tartar wars. The influence of the Jagiellonian dynasty in Central Europe had been on the rise. In 1471 Casimir's son Władysław became King of Bohemia, and in 1490 also of Hungary. The southern and eastern outskirts of Poland and Lithuania became threatened by Turkish invasions beginning in the late 15th century. Moldavia's involvement with Poland goes back to 1387, when Petru I, Hospodar of Moldavia, seeking protection against the Hungarians, paid Jagiello homage in Lviv, which gave Poland access to the Black Sea ports. In 1485 King Casimir undertook an expedition into Moldavia after its seaports were overtaken by the Ottoman Turks. The Turkish-controlled Crimean Tartars raided the Eastern Territories in 1482 and 1487, until they were confronted by King Jan Olbracht, Casimir's son and successor. Poland was attacked in 1487 to 1491 by remnants of the Golden Horde. They had invaded into Poland as far as Lublin before being beaten at Zasław. King John Albert in 1497 made an attempt to resolve the Turkish problem militarily, but his efforts were unsuccessful as he was unable to secure effective participation in the war by his brothers, King Władysław II of Bohemia and Hungary, and Alexander, the Grand Duke of Lithuania, and because of the resistance on the part of Stephen the Great, the ruler of Moldavia. More Ottoman Empire instigated destructive Tartar raids took place in 1498, 1499 and 1500. John Albert's diplomatic peace efforts that followed were finalized after the king's death in 1503, resulting in a territorial compromise and an unstable truce. Sigismund I the Old and Sigismund II Augustus the Grand Duke Alexander was elected King of Poland in 1501, after the death of John Albert. In 1506 he was succeeded by Sigismund I the Old in both Poland and Lithuania, as the political realities were drawing the two states closer together. Prior to that, Sigismund had been a Duke of Silesia by the authority of his brother Władysław II of Bohemia, but like other Jagiellonian rulers before him, he had not pursued the Polish crown's claim to Silesia. After the death of King Alexander I, Sigismund arrived in Vilnius, where he was elected by the Lithuanian Ducal Council on 13 September 1506 as Grand Duke of Lithuania, contrary to the Union of Mielnik, which involved a joint Polish-Lithuanian election of a monarch. On 8 December 1506, during the session of the Polish Senate in Piotrków, Sigismund was elected King of Poland. He arrived in Kraków on 20 January 1507 and was crowned 4 days later in Warel Cathedral by Primate Andrzej Boryszewski. In 1518 Sigismund I married Bona Sforza d'Aragona, a young, strong-minded Italian princess. Bona's sway of the king and the magnates, her efforts to strengthen the monarch's political position, financial situation, and especially the measures she took to advance her personal and dynastic interests, including the forced royal election of the minor Sigismund Augustus in 1529 and his premature coronation in 1530, increased the discontent among Szlachta activists. Chicken War. The rebellion of Lwow to the rebellion of Lwow was an anti-royalist and anti-absolutist rockers by the Polish nobility that occurred in 1537. The derisive name was coined by the magnates, who for the most part supported the king and claimed that the war's only effect was the near extinction of the local chickens, eaten by the nobles gathered for the rebellion at Lwow in Lesser Poland. The nobility, gathered near the city to meet with the levée en masse, called for a military campaign against Moldavia. However, the lesser and middle strata of the nobility called the rebellion or semi-legal rebellion to force the king to abandon his risky reforms. The nobles presented him with 36 demands, most notably, a cessation of further land acquisitions by Queen Bona, exemption of the nobility from the tithes, a clean-up of the treasury rather than its expansion, confirmation and extension of the privileges of the nobility, lifting of the toll or exemption of the nobility from it, adoption introduction of the law concerning incompatibilitas, the incompatibility of certain offices that were not to be joined in the same hand, the carrying out of a law requiring the appointment of only the local nobles to most important local offices, and the creation of a body of permanent advisors to the king. Finally, the protesters criticized the role of Queen Bona, whom they blamed for the bad education of young Prince Sigismund Augustus, as well as for seeking to increase her power and influence in the state. Sigismund II Augustus. From the outset of his reign, Sigismund came into collision with the country's nobility, who had already begun curtailing the power of the great families. The ostensible cause of the nobility's animosity to the king was his second marriage, secretly contracted before his accession to the throne, with Lithuanian Calvinist Barbara Radziwiłł, daughter of Hetman Jerzy Radziwiłł. Secret marriage was strongly opposed by his mother Bona and by the magnates of the crown. Sigismund, who took over the reign after his father's death in 1548, overcame the resistance and had Barbara crowned in 1550. A few months later the new queen died. Bona, estranged from her son, returned to Italy in 1556, where she died soon afterwards. Sigismund II possessed to a high degree the tenacity and patience that seem to have characterized all the Jagiellonians, and he added to these qualities a dexterity and diplomatic finesse. No other Polish king seems to have so thoroughly understood the nature of the Polish Sejm. Both the Austrian ambassadors and the papal legates testify to the care with which he controlled his nation. Everything went as he wished, they said, because he seemed to know everything in advance. He managed to get more money out of the Sejm than his father ever could, and at one of his SEJMs he won the hearts of the assembly by unexpectedly appearing before them in the simple grey coat of a Masovian lord. Like his father, a pro-Austrian by conviction, he contrived even in this respect to carry with him the nation, often distrustful of the Germans. He avoided serious complications with the powerful Turks. Sigismund II mediated for 20 years between the Catholic Church and the Protestants. His most striking memorial may have been the Union of Lublin, which united Poland and Lithuania into the Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth, the Republic of the Two Nations. Also, German-speaking Royal Prussia and Prussian cities were included. This achievement might well have been impossible without Sigismund. Golden Age of Polish culture. The Polish Golden Age, the period of the reigns of Sigismund I and Sigismund II, the last two Jagiellonian kings, or more generally the 16th century, is most often identified with the rise of the culture of Polish Renaissance. The cultural flowering had its material base in the prosperity of the elites, both the landed nobility and urban patriciate at such centers as Krakow and Danzig. As was the case with other European nations, the Renaissance inspiration came in the first place from Italy, a process accelerated to some degree by Sigismund I's marriage to Bona Sforza. Many Poles traveled to Italy to study and to learn its culture. As imitating Italian ways became very trendy, many Italian artists and thinkers were coming to Poland, some settling and working there for many years, while the pioneering Polish humanists, greatly influenced by Erasmus of Rotterdam, accomplished the preliminary assimilation of the antiquity culture. The generation that followed was able to put greater emphasis on the development of native elements, and because of its social diversity, advanced the process of national integration. The Academy of Krakow and Sigismund II possessed well-stocked libraries. Smaller collections were increasingly common at noble courts, schools and townspeople's households. Literacy levels were falling, as by the end of the 16th century almost every parish ran a school. the Jagiellonians and the Habsburgs. In 1515, during a congress in Vienna, a dynastic succession arrangement was agreed to between Maximilian I, Holy Roman Emperor, and the Jagiellonian brothers, Władysław II of Bohemia and Hungary, and Sigismund I of Poland and Lithuania. It was supposed to end the emperor's support for Poland's enemies, the Teutonic and Russian states, but after the election of Charles V, Maximilian's successor in 1519, the relations with Sigismund had worsened. The Jagiellonian rivalry with the House of Habsburg in Central Europe was ultimately resolved to the Habsburgs' advantage. The decisive factor that damaged or weakened the monarchies of the last Jagiellonians was the Ottoman Empire's Turkish expansion. Hungary's vulnerability greatly increased after Suleiman the Magnificent took the Belgrade fortress in 1521. To prevent Poland from extending military aid to Hungary, Suleiman had a Tartar-Turkish force raid southeastern Poland-Lithuania in 1524. The Hungarian army was defeated in 1526 at the Battle of Mohacs, where the young Louis II Jagiellon, son of Władysław II, was killed. Subsequently, after a period of internal strife and external intervention, Hungary was partitioned between the Habsburgs and the Ottomans.